Speaker is Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. I looked at a report that was done by one of our betting companies, and they were looking at their contribution to the Irish economy. And some of the points that they made in the summary was that they contributed over 70 million to the economy. There were over 900 jobs supported. They had sponsored a number of sporting events, and that they were paying commercial rates and water charges to local authorities. So I can certainly say that they did make a positive contribution. And I look at this bill, the Betting Amendment Bill. I know it's mainly about licensing, and it's taking into account the new development of online gambling. It's about the conduct of bookmaking-related operations, and I suppose it's very much in keeping with the times that we live in because of social media and the increase of betting and gambling online. I mean, the positive bits are about the compliance, the non-compliance, those who may act as bookmakers and not licensed to do so, and there's significant fines outlined, but of course only time will tell if they're going to be deterrent enough. There's the comprehensive section about applying for the licence, and particularly for these new remote licences. There's a lot in it that that is positive, and that I can't disagree with. I note also the prohibitions on online betting for those under 18, and I think that's much more of a grey area, because I'm not too sure that the way to prohibit that and to monitor it is strong enough in either this bill, but I know the Minister is thinking of there is another bill being prepared. If all remote this betting complied with the terms, then of course there will be additional revenue raised, and of course the point is that where will this go? We know that betting revenue goes to Horse Racing Ireland and Bord na Gán to develop horse racing and the greyhound industry. Now, I've had quite a number of debates with the Minister for Agriculture and the Minister for Arts, Heritage and the Gaeltacht about the greyhound industry, and particularly in relation to coursing. And I don't want to take from those people who have greyhounds and who treat them in a very fair way, but we do know that there are abuses within that greyhound industry, and yet the government is continuing to fund it. We know that there are very significant numbers of greyhounds who are put down and who are abused because they're not making the cut on the racetrack. We also know in terms of coursing that the Irish Greyhound Club are not active enough on trying to prevent coursing meetings taking place in really adverse weather conditions, and there are appalling injuries to greyhounds and particularly to the hares at those events. I do agree about the level playing field for bookmakers. Because certainly there have been some who have been at a disadvantage. I was a bit bemused by a comment in it about that the business of bookmaking in a disorderly manner, or in such a manner as to cause persons to congregate and loiter in or outside the premises where the business was conducted, or had permitted persons to loiter in those premises. Well, I think that's a bit unrealistic when it comes to the betting industry and bookie shops, because the whole nature of what happens there is that there will be a certain amount of loitering because of the nature of what's going on there. The explanatory memorandum seems very comprehensive, and what it claims is the aim of the bill, this fair and equal treatment. It's good that it's noting that there is a role to prevent crime and to protect consumers against fraud, and that this regulation could lead to this. Now, I listened to quite a number of the contributions, and quite a number of them also include the issue of gambling and gambling addiction. And it's interesting and probably ironic also that at this point in time in Dublin Castle, the Minister of State at the Department of Health, who has responsibility on the addiction and the drugs issue, is hosting a seminar. And there's quite a lot of speakers and inputs on the whole area of drug and alcohol addiction. And we know now that the alcohol issue is being brought in with the drug strategy, and the various drugs task forces are going to be including alcohol in this. And that's going to be one of the debates there. Those who work in addiction, those affected by addiction, whether they're in addiction themselves or their loved ones are, will all testify to the increase in the number of those who are presenting with the gambling addiction. And it's really important that when we discuss the bill that we don't minimise the very serious and the often tragic consequences for those with the gambling addiction. Those with drug and alcohol addictions, 95% of them, we generally can identify them because there are visible signs of that addiction. But we don't see that with gambling. You know, the person who abuses drugs or alcohol, we will see the physical signs at some point. The body will not have any more veins for those who are injecting, and the physical effects of alcohol abuse will be manifest, and we see the increase in those who are presenting with liver illness and the increase in the development of cirrhosis. So there is a limit, a physical limit, when it comes to those addictions. But there's no physical limit on the gambler. And he can just go, or she can keep going on and on and on, because their body can take all of the gambling abuse in a way that those in drug or alcohol addiction can't. There is one online gambling company in another jurisdiction, and I just hope it doesn't arise here. And they keep an eye on those who are gambling online. And when they come to a debt of about €1,000 or £1,000, they then put in this offer immediately of about a €100, 100 sterling offer of free bets. And of course that is to increase the addiction and to increase the amount that's going to be owed. I've had a number of PQs with the Minister for Justice on the whole area of gambling addiction. And one of the points was to ask him, would he not support a national impact study? Now, the answer was a bit strange because on the one hand, what he said was that he doesn't have access to information that would support suggestions of an increase in the numbers of persons. Well, that to me indicates the need for an impact study in order to gauge the exact numbers that are involved. I mean, if you talk to any of the rehabilitation centres, any of the counselling centres, and they will tell you, as they've told me, that there is an increase in those appealing to them for rehab and for counselling with gambling addictions. And we know there's an increase of number. I mean, people are losing their homes through mortgage repossession, but there are people losing their homes because of a gambling addiction of a person within the family. And the bill is not doing anything on that aspect. Now, I do acknowledge the ordinary gambler who knows his or her limit, who has the few bets, whether it's daily or weekly. I know the day out of the races and how enjoyable that can be. I know the excitement around the time of the Grand National, and I totally accept the role of personal responsibility, but there are aspects to the gambling industry that are unsavoury, like the one that I just mentioned there. There's also, with the FOBTs, these fixed odd betting terminals. Now, we don't have them here just yet, but I think it's worth flagging this as something to be aware of. They're a gambling machine. There's something like the slot machine, but they don't have a limit on what somebody can put into these, and what people can bet there. So there's no limit on them. They're not legal here, as I said, but they are in other jurisdictions. And the statistic is that €100 or £100 sterling can be lost in the space of less than 20 seconds. So if you multiply many seconds in a minute, and you can see how much somebody can lose. The bill has premises closed on Christmas Day and Good Friday. I can't agree with Deputy Lawler that he would like to see horse racing on Good Friday and bookies open on Good Friday. And I have to wonder about the time, 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. There's issues for the staff. They work very antisocial hours. They work Saturdays, they work Sundays, they work late nights, they work bank holidays. And to my knowledge, in some companies, there's no increase in their rate of pay for those antisocial hours. It's just included generally in their hours. There's another move in England, I know, and again, I just want to highlight it so that we don't go down that road here, where English betting establishments can apply to the local authority to extend opening hours to midnight at the weekends. And of course, that's at the weekends. It's a very cynical abuse of people who are in having a drink, much more vulnerable and much more likely to do something stupid with gambling, whether it's online or whether it's right into the bookie shop, if they're open and accessible. As I said, I do agree that there should be a level playing field for bookmakers, and certainly they've been at a disadvantage due to the competition from online bookmakers, but enforcement is critical. I know that the department is preparing a gambling control bill, and you know, it's to ensure fairness in the conduct of gambling, but I don't know that the two terms can go together, fairness and gambling. They sound like a bit of a contradiction. There is a need to protect vulnerable people, and they are the people who are underage and those who have an addiction. And there's something odd about asking an industry, whether it's the gambling industry or the drinks industry, to fund difficulties and the problems that arise because of their industry. I mean, I agree with it, but I still think it's something of a contradiction. We do know that gambling can attract illegal criminal activity. And I think that is something that I hope the next bill will tackle in a very comprehensive way. We've seen the increase in the number of casinos, and it's frightening to listen to young people in their late teens, early 20s, and that part of their going out for a few drinks to a pub or to a club, that the other part of the night out is going to the casino. And I don't think we're looking at that and the accessibility and the easy availability. So in itself, the bill, you know, can be accepted. It's welcomed by the bookmaking industry, but I'm waiting to see the next bill because I think it needs to go an awful lot further.